I don't recommend fasting at the beginning and stay hydrated. Once you're fat adapted, then you can play with that.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching our videos. If you'd like to support us some more, you can explore our homemade natural skincare products at purelytallow.com. Thank you so much for supporting my small business. Hey everybody, welcome to the Carnivore Revolution. I'm Serena, and today my guest is Priscilla. You might know her as Carnivore Mama 4 from Instagram. And we've been friends talking back and forth for a while, and I'm super excited to share your story today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yay! So let's talk about that for a minute. I like to start with people's story because I think the viewers can see right off the bat whether or not this is something that might affect them or something that might work for them, depending on whether their story kind of matches yours. So let's start with that.
So my story is all about hormones.
Okay, good.
So I was keto for 3 years, and then I switched to carnivore for hormone healing.
Okay.
I am a year and a half, almost a year and a half in, and I have had my second cycle without a menstrual migraine.
Wow.
Which I used to have a lot of other symptoms like depression, anxiety, rage, the feelings of doom, always on edge. And the only thing that has stayed is the menstrual migraines. And I'm just now getting 2 cycles without one.
Wow, that is very cool. So did you have any other health issues that you were hoping to heal going into this, or weight loss or anything like that?
So I actually started at a ideal weight and I gained weight. And I still have that weight, but I'm focusing on the non-scale victories. And I do believe it will come when healing's done.
Yeah, I agree with that. As you probably know, I had that same issue at the beginning. A lot of us talk about this kind of stuff online. I gained weight in the beginning, but not to scare people off, because that doesn't happen to everybody. So I think a lot of people come to carnivore for weight loss. So it's interesting. What made you decide at an ideal weight, not needing to lose weight? What was the driving force? Did you just hear about carnivore and decide you were going to try it for this?
Yeah, so I was actually part of carnivore groups for maybe longer, but I know for at least a year, lurking, reading. And ironically, in my last pregnancy, I started craving meat, ground beef specifically.
Okay.
And so I kind of went meat heavy naturally. And then reading about it, like you can get on carnivore groups and read so much. I took the plunge. But yeah, I just started craving ground beef. I made a ground beef dish, which I actually just shared on my page recently, and I ate that every single day.
How funny. That's awesome. So ground beef gets you through it. And yeah, I agree with you. The weight loss will come. There are some things that have to heal first, and people get discouraged by that. But I think what happens is there are so many other things that happen along the way, so many amazing things. Like for me, it was while I was gaining weight, I noticed that my varicose veins were gone, and like some of my varicose veins would have hurt certain times of the month, and those were gone or weren't hurting anymore. There were lots of little things, like my legs would be swollen sometimes at the end of the day, and that wasn't happening anymore. So many little things, age spots on my face, like we say they're from the sun, those basically disappeared. I had a lot of things happen that I didn't expect to happen. I used to get migraines sometimes. So there were all these little things for me that just started getting better. And I remember thinking, why are people talking about this more? But it's because I was in groups where it was mostly about weight loss, right? I mean, I was mostly hearing about the weight loss. So it's interesting for it to come from, a different side where you didn't even start for weight loss, because honestly, most people do.
Yep.
So
I mean, it would have been nice if I lost a few pounds, but yeah, I started out at an ideal body weight, and I actually did lose 2 pounds, and then it just kept going up and going up. But now where it went up, I haven't went past that, which is a beautiful thing, because if I was this weight on a standard American diet, I would be much bigger.
Yes.
And yes, I've gained weight and fat. There is body fat. I have also put on a ton of muscle.
Yeah.
Very easily. But back to the non-scale victories, like I was at a loss. I went to a hormone doctor, and I was literally feeling like I was going crazy, the mental aspect of everything. And I'll go back to why that even got started. It's just not one thing, but it's like a trail of things. And they just, before I had any blood work done, did the Dutch test, I left with a prescription of progesterone.
Of course you did.
Okay, so no help there. this has been going on several years. I'll go to my primary every single time. I'm like, I just want to know why this is happening. My chief complaint is hormones and migraines, and I get no help. I leave with beta blockers to help with mood, and a sumatriptan for my migraines. The 1 month I did that was the worst month. I can usually work through them, and that month I couldn't. So it's like, once you're sick, you can't get help.
Yeah, that's right. And
You can't.
so often people have a sickness where they go to the doctor and the doctor says, well, your blood work is good, and they just kind of send you away. You know, that happens. We hear a lot about that in the carnivore community for people with CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome, where they just have all these symptoms and they can't figure out what it's from. A lot of times it's from mold or something like that, but the doctors will say your blood work is fine and send you away, and then you feel like you're going crazy.
Yes. And so my doctor wouldn't do a full thyroid panel, but I've always had my TSH checked. So like all these years, I've never put anything like 2 and 2 together that it was my thyroid. And I've read Dr. Elizabeth Wright's books. I've watched every one of her interviews, and I commented on one of her videos. I'm like, hey, I read your book, I've watched your interviews, and you don't really say anything about menstrual migraines. And that's when she wrote back and just said thyroid, which is what I suspected because of symptoms. Well, I have to figure this out on my own because no one else will help me, you know? And it's just, and then also I've had 4 pregnancies, and what I'm about to tell you might seem like a good thing, but all 4 journeys I've finished my breastfeeding journey with a small deep freezer, slam packed. That's not necessary. That's terrible. And it's not actually abnormal for you to be hypothyroid after pregnancy, which I didn't know that. And so that's kind of how I got here. You know, pregnancy, my son was 6 months when I got pregnant again. And then, of course, I couldn't take birth controls while I got pregnant the second time because it makes me batty. And then I got on birth control. I was on that for 5 years. It was a different birth control that what I'm gonna get to now. And same thing, headaches, which not as bad. I was in my 20s. And it got so bad that I had the sense of doom and death and something bad was going to happen, anxiety. I could not sleep. And then randomly, again, you can't get help. Randomly, I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw the support page about the IUD that I had in, which is the copper one, the non-hormonal one, right? And so I immediately got that out and things got better. And then I didn't have one and then I had my third. Of course, you got to get birth control. So that IUD really caused havoc too. Again, I didn't realize it. And then they're 2.5 years apart. And then I got that out, got pregnant, had another baby, pumped way too much milk. And then after that, I was completely fine. I didn't get that IUD until 8 months postpartum. So I was fine. And then the last IUD just really pushed me over the edge of a series of events that was already happening. And then I had a keto pregnancy. It was like the healthiest pregnancy I had. I walked every single day. I felt great. I gained a normal amount of weight, and I got preeclamptic at the end. And so I'm like, what could be causing this? And I'm just now finding out years later that that can be caused by hypothyroidism. But I didn't know that, you need a whole thyroid panel to find out your thyroid health. They just did TSH. It's always been normal. So that's kind of how I got here, and the hormone trouble.
Yeah. So a lot of it was your thyroid though. Did you finally get your doctor to do like a full thyroid panel?
So the only thing that I have gotten tested is free T4 and TSH.
Okay.
But he is a primary doctor. If it's in range, you're fine. So like a functional doctor, which I actually have an appointment with Dr. Bright in July. Hopefully I can get more answers. They tend to treat symptoms and trends, not just because the reference ranges are so wide. It's hard to get help.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Hopefully Dr. Bright can help you. Dr. Bright is a great doctor. She knows so much about hormones and fat, you know, that women need more fat. And so a lot of her videos have come in handy for me. So if you guys aren't following Dr. Bright, make sure you find her and watch some of her videos. So how strict did you have to be once you became a carnivore? How strict did you have to be to get the results that you got?
So what I did different to get these 2 last migraines, if you follow me, you know that I have tried it all.
Yeah.
I've tried super high fat. I've tried just high fat. I've tried high protein. And what is working now for me is 3 small meals and 2 snacks. And of course, if I'm hungry outside of that, I eat.
So I know that you had been keto for a little while first. So was that a hard transition for you, transitioning from keto to carnivore?
No, the hardest thing was kicking the artificial sweetener. That was hard. And although not real sugar, really depressing. It was depressing.
Yeah.
It took a good 3 weeks to kick that habit. And even after that, I struggled with like, what do you look forward to?
Right.
It is so liberating not to feel that way anymore. And I have had a keto cheesecake because I cook keto for my significant other.
Yeah.
And I had a piece, right? The next day I had a piece, and the next day I had a piece. And I went through this all over again after I had already gotten over this. So never again.
Yeah, I've done that. I've done that with like a keto cheesecake, like for a holiday, and it's delicious. And I know when I'm eating it that I'm coming back for more. And if we have, and sometimes I'll double it. Like I still do what I used to do with normal, like sweet foods when I was a carb addict, which I still am, but when I was dealing with that, and I make a double batch because I know I'm going to want more. And so that's really a slippery slope. I have to be really careful. So do you think, were you ever like a sugar addict or a carb addict? Or do you think,
oh my God.
Oh, you
yes.
were? Okay. All right. We didn't talk about that as part of your story. So you definitely had issues with that. So is that why you went keto to begin with?
So when I went keto to begin with, it was strictly for weight loss. I never intended on being on it forever. I thought I could possibly die. Even when I was keto, I still like watched my butter and ate, you know, the plant oils, avocado, olive, you know, and I dropped 20 pounds in 6 months.
Wow.
6 months. So, and then the energy, I'm a mom, the energy is what has kept me there.
Yeah.
Because I would go back from eating lunch, and I work in the dark, I do ultrasound.
Okay.
And I don't want to just fall asleep. I literally, from the time I started keto till now, I don't go through that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I think that is just a huge thing that people that just eat, you know, whatever they want, whenever they want, whether they're overweight or not, healthy or not. That's one of the things people don't realize is the sugar spikes, the spikes in your insulin, just, it causes such, it's when you're coming back down, and that's, you know, 2.5 hours or 3 hours after you eat breakfast, you know, you have lots of energy, and then it crashes, and then you might be stable for a little while, but then, you know, it starts to crash again, and then you need another snack. You eat lunch, and people, you know, get super hungry and they get jittery because they got to eat. And that doesn't happen when you eat a low carbohydrate diet. It's really amazing. So
actually, I get in trouble not feeling or paying attention to my hunger cues, and it can hit me like a ton of bricks. And then I don't always, but sometimes I'll feel the hunger signals and completely forget about them. And then I'm not feeling too good. And I'm like, okay, it's time to eat.
Yeah, that happens to me too. I forget to eat sometimes. For me, I actually have to track my calories sometimes to be sure I'm not under eating, because it can be so hard to make sure that you eat enough on the carnivore diet because you're just not hungry. And I think normal people have a really hard time understanding that. So what does a typical day of eating look like for you now?
So now I eat 3 meals a day and 2 snacks. So like I start out the day with a fatty coffee, 2 tablespoons of butter, and an egg yolk, because I'm just not really feeling actual food. And then a few hours later, depending on how much stress or how active I am, I'll have like an ounce or 2 ounces of, it's usually jerky and some butter. And then I'll have my small lunch, same thing, 2 ounces of jerky, butter, and then dinner. And if I'm hungry after that, guess what? I'm eating.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think we should deprive ourselves. Now, fasting has a place, but I think that if you're not in a fasting process, you know, for your body, if you're not incorporating fasting, there's nothing wrong with 3 or 4 meals a day if that's what you want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I think we need to feed ourselves. We need to nourish our bodies. And so I'm glad that, you know, that you'll eat that other meal if you're hungry. I think that's important.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
sometimes like I can skip the morning snack. Like at work, I'm super busy, and at home I am too, but sometimes it just works out, and I'll skip it. So, you know, the 1 egg and the 2 tablespoons of butter, it kind of keeps you in a, not a true fasting state, but you're getting benefits there.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Yeah. So did you get backlash from friends and family when you went carnivore? Did anybody like, oh no, you're gonna die? Like, I mean, what do your friends and family think?
so my mom is actually keto, so not from her.
Okay.
A few people, and I work in cardiology, so you can imagine.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I had a nurse ask me as they're eating pizza what my A1C is. It's
Let me
funny,
check your A1C, shall we?
right?
Yeah.
And as soon as I got it back, I let her know.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's really interesting that people, like, she wouldn't have said anything to you if you just sat down and eaten some pizza with her, right?
Hmm.
But because you eat hamburger patties or, you know, ground beef for lunch, everybody like, what do you mean? Where's the bun? Where's the ketchup? Where's, you know, where's all the stuff you're supposed to put on there? And if you don't do that, you're automatically like, people really believe it's the meat in that meal that's going to make you
I
sick.
know. And you know
When,
what? It used to be me.
yeah, right. Yeah.
I eat a loaded baked potato and a steak. It's the steak.
Yep, that's exactly right. And people still believe that, but like if you look at the studies that show that meat is bad for you, it's they're they have asked people what they ate like for the last 6 months, right? People don't remember how many times they ate beef in the last 6 months. But when they described a meat meal, it was pizza with lots of meat on it.
Casserole.
And it was a burger with the bun and the fries and maybe a milkshake or something. Like they weren't eating just meat. So let's talk after we find a study, you know, that just does meat.
That's what I tell people all the time. I said, no study exists that studies just eating meat.
Right. That's right. Harvard did something a couple of years ago, 2,000 people or something like that. That's a decent study, but there haven't been any like actual clinical trials or anything like that. But there are plenty of us that would volunteer for that. So we got to keep our
Right?
eyes open to find out when they're looking for people for that, because I know there are a lot of us that would do something like that just to prove that, you know,
Oh,
even
for
though
sure.
my blood work every year isn't enough to prove to people. So they just keep waiting for it to get bad, you know, like, let me see it. I don't believe your cholesterol is good. My cholesterol is good. 177. It's really good. It's actually gone down.
Or they don't believe you really eat what you say you eat.
Right. Exactly. Like I'm in the closet eating salads at my house. Yeah. That's what I'm doing. Yeah. So silly. So do you have any, have you read any good like carnivore health books that you think people should read? Like some recommendations?
I read Dr. Elizabeth Wright's Good Fat is Good for Women Menopause.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it is not just for women in menopause. I think every single woman should read this book.
Okay.
And I'm just now starting her adolescence book.
Okay.
And I'm patiently waiting for her thyroid book.
Awesome. Very good. I don't think that I have read her books, so I will definitely add that to my list. And
Yeah. So what I'm doing right now is, which ironically has got me through 2 cycles with no migraine, is the what I learned out of her book.
okay, awesome. So
Yeah.
what kind of things are you doing? What's
So
different?
the 3 meals a day, 2 snacks.
Okay.
So it keeps your cortisol down.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I have heard that. I've heard her say that before in interviews. So yeah, so I think that's the thing that women disregard so much is that we need to eat.
Mm-hmm.
It's so ingrained in us that we should be like picking at our food, you know, just eating little bits, you know, like little birdies. And I think that we do ourselves more harm than good like that. Absolutely.
And although I was keto 3 years before coming to carnivore, I still was not eating enough
Yeah.
or the right foods.
Right. Yeah. It's tough.
But I do know for a fact everything that I went through, I feel like it would be, I can't even imagine where I'd be if I was not on a ketogenic diet.
Right.
Because ketosis is just literal magic. People just have no idea.
I agree.
And even when I was preeclamptic, whenever I went to the doctor because my blood pressure was sky high, he called me into the office. He wanted me to go to the ER, but it was COVID and I had no milk pumped. So I went to the office. I'm like, can I just come the next day? And he said, if you didn't have ankles, you'd be going to the ER right now. I had no swelling, any of that went with preeclampsia. And I'm probably not saying that right. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't know where I'd be if I was not on keto going through all this. But again, I still wasn't eating enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
That
still
happens.
feared the animal stuff.
Yeah. It's hard, right? It's so hard to get past that. Like I have conversations with people who like are on my side, like people are doing carnivore, they believe me, they've seen the results themselves, and then they're like, but how is it possible?
I know.
Vegetables really aren't what's best for us. How is it possible that that information has been wrong all these years? Like you sit back and you think about it and you just think like, how is it possible? Right?
I know.
It's amazing.
Like people in my personal life will literally tell me, she was like, I'm so happy it's working for you. She was like, but I will never believe vegetables are not healthy or the healthiest for you. And I'm like, because she was talking about making her children eat vegetables. And I'm like, just make them eat some bacon, not some vegetables. And that's when she kind of like
flipped on you. Yeah. Yeah. She was like, hey, don't take away my vegetables. Yeah. You know, we were just, that was pushed on us. And the vegetables we have now are not even the original vegetables. Nothing that we have right now that grows out of the ground really is natural. Like everything has been genetically modified or just changed over the years. You know, it's not what it used to be. So when people say like, oh, but fruits and vegetables are in the Bible, or, you know, like, and I think the Garden of Eden was a lot different than what we have now. And I don't think you can compare the two. You can't compare the two.
And back to what switched me to carnivore also, I was already well aware, part of groups, reading, learning. And it's so funny because Dr. Chafee always mentions Brussels sprouts. And that is the particular vegetable that was like, you know what? Done. I mean, I would look 3 months pregnant after eating them. And then here came broccoli. And it's so weird how it came so far into my ketogenic journey, you know?
Yeah. So Dr. Chafee, this one's for you. Brussels sprouts have 136 known carcinogens. Thank you for that. I mean, that's insane to hear that, right? I mean, and people who eat Brussels sprouts every day have no idea. They have no idea. So people should be doing more research. They should read Sally Norton's book, Toxic Superfoods. So if you had one piece of advice for somebody getting started, what would it be?
I don't recommend fasting at the beginning, and stay hydrated. And then once you're fat adapted, then you can play with that.
I think that's great advice. Great advice.
Cravings are so real. And if you're stuffed with fat, you're not really going to think about it as much.
That's really true. The fat goes a really long way.
It really does.
A high fat diet. And carnivore is not a high protein diet. It's a high fat diet. And I think people don't really understand how that works. But it's a lot different than a high protein diet.
For sure. When I was just eating high protein, because I tried it all, I was just eating the fatty meat and I was not adding anything to it. I was getting up to 2 pounds of meat minimum easily. And then most of the time I was eating more than that because I wasn't satisfied. And that's really when I packed on the pounds. But
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Priscilla, thank you so much. I think your story can help some other people. So I'm really glad we got to share it today.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it.
And thank you for watching. I'll see you next time on the Carnivore Revolution.